On the Jalen Hurts front, and I hesitate on this one because he's really good. Okay, so I don't want to make it sound like he's in the category with the Trent Dilfers or Brad Johnsons. Okay, I don't. That's not.
No, be somewhere in the middle.
Well, okay.
At least
interesting you say it that way because I went and looked. So I was thinking this, and Jalen Hurts played way better against against Spagnuolo's defense than I thought he would.
Yes,
he's done that twice now, and in both Super Bowls he's played great, and you got to give him all the credit in the world. But I went back and I thought, okay, so Nick Foles won a Super Bowl.
Yes.
Obviously the worst quarterback to win a Super Bowl since Brad Johnson and Trent Dilfer.
Yes.
Okay. So then I went back through all of the Super Bowl champion quarterbacks.
Yeah.
And they're all elite, dude. I mean, as you know, it's not a stunning turn of events there. So because of that, because usually who wins the Super Bowl, usually they have a Roethlisberger, a Manning, a Brady, a Mahomes, because of that, you got to go all the way back to 1990, which was Hostetler, to find a, quote, worse, and I hate using that term, but a worse quarterback than the guys I just mentioned to win the Super Bowl. My point here is that if you take Hostetler in 90, certainly Dilfer in 2000, and Brad Johnson in 2002, and then you add Nick Foles, those four guys right there.
Sure.
If you go all the way from 1990 to last night, the Eagles have just won the Super Bowl twice with two of the bottom five quarterbacks of the last 35 years.
It's impressive.
If you put it that way, because Hurts, as good as he is, he's not Roethlisberger, Breeze, Rodgers. You go through all the quarterbacks, he's not as good as any of them.
To me, and they're not the same player. Okay, they're very different players. But if you want to put him in a box and say, he's a Super Bowl MVP, he's a Super Bowl champion, and he easily could be a two-time Super Bowl champion because he was the best player on the field 3 years ago. I guess that would have been 2 Super Bowls ago when they played. He's Eli Manning or he's Joe Flacco. Eli Manning's going to be a Hall of Famer. You can debate it, but Eli Manning's a Hall of Famer. Joe Flacco probably isn't, but Joe Flacco at one point was the highest paid quarterback in the league and was a Super Bowl champion. And by the way, look at Joe Flacco's playoff numbers. They were hammer numbers. He was really good. And the truth of the matter is, despite what some Ryan Clark is going to tell you, if you were starting a team, there's not a GM in the league that would take Jalen Hurts with the 6th he would be no higher than probably 8th. Okay. That doesn't mean that he's not a really good quarterback. It doesn't mean that he doesn't come up in his biggest moments, but this is more Troy Aikman, Eli Manning, Joe Flacco. And there's nothing wrong with that because three of those guys are one's a 3-time Super Bowl champ, one's a 2-time Super Bowl champ. But Troy Aikman won more Super Bowls than Steve Young. Steve Young was such a better quarterback than Troy Aikman. So that's where Jalen Hurts goes in, and I don't know why that is such an awful thing to say. The truth of the matter is, they averaged 188 yards through the air this year in the regular season. This is the worst passing offense to win a Super Bowl in modern history. And they won it because it's an elite defense, it's an elite run game, they're elite at every position, and they're good. Not great, they're good at quarterback. And in the biggest moment, their good quarterback played exceptionally well.
He's just really good for what they have.
Yes.
He's a good fit for them.
Yes.
And I think he looks a lot better with them than he would in other places.
Oh, God, yes.
Let's put it that way.
Yes.
But I was thinking about it in terms of the Eagles. 2 of the bottom 5 quarterbacks of the last 35 years, and again, that's debatable, winning championships. We just don't think of teams built like this as dynasties, right? We don't think of that because they don't have the elite coach-quarterback combo.
No.
But that leads me back to Howie Roseman.
Yes.
And dude,
Who's the real MVP?
This MFer has built 2, so they just keep reinventing and churning their roster.
Yep.
He's a Hall of Famer, right?
Yes.
Like he's got to be.
He's got to be.
Because you go all the way back to
This is actually their third. This is their
third iteration
time in the Super Bowl in 8 years, and it is the third different roster that has been in the Super Bowl, and they've won 2 of them.
Without an elite quarterback or an elite coach. Although the first time they had Andy Reid, right?
No. The first time they did not have
First
Andy
time,
Reid.
who
was Doug Peterson.
Was it Peterson twice?
Doug Peterson.
He went to 2 Super Bowls? Because he won it with Foles. Like the Fletcher Cox crew and that crew.
Yeah. So they won with Doug Peterson. They lost with Sirianni twice. So
That's right.
the
Yes.
first
Okay.
one was Doug Peterson that won,
Well, I'm
and then
thinking of-
Sirianni lost, and then if you want to go all the way back, that's Andy Reid.
See, I'm going back to like
That's way back.
Fletcher Cox,
No, yeah.
Jason Kell. You know those.
Yeah.
Just hold on. Just so when they had that championship run with those studs that they had then,
Yeah.
they replaced every single one of those guys with another stud.
Yep.
Enter, like in this iteration, you've got Jalen Carter and
DeJean and Mitchell and Bond and
well, yeah, but like for Kelsey, it's Juergens
Yeah.
and like every single stud that they had, they replaced with another stud almost immediately.
Yeah.
Which is, I don't know why. Is that being taken for granted here? Because they've done this.
Yes, I think so.
They've done this 3
Their
times.
roster construction does not get enough credit.
Oh my God!
You hear about tush push and
yes,
like the way they've drafted, which is good, but the overall roster construction is
so
the MVP here.
And they keep losing coordinators. So they just had. So I think Kellen Moore was in his first year there, right?
Yes, he was.
And so was Vic Fangio.
So they lost 2 years ago when they went to the Super Bowl. They lost both coordinators to head coaching jobs.
Steichen to Indy,
and then
Gannon
last
to
year they brought
Arizona.
in 2 coordinators, and it was a disaster. And they fired them, and they brought in 2 new coordinators,
Sirianni.
and here they are.
And Sirianni should be given credit for that.
Yes.
Because he saw the problems, and I even read quotes from him today saying he that was a turning point for them. They
fixed it.
They figured it out from that. But just this offseason, they signed 2 new coordinators. They signed Becton. They signed Saquon.
Yep.
They signed. He completely reinvented the secondary in the draft, in one freaking draft.
Yep.
Howie Roseman is a freaking genius, and he's done this 3 times. And I don't think enough credit is being given to how the Eagles continue to win and how quickly they continue to win without an elite coach quarterback combo.
Yeah.
With Peterson, Foles, and now Sirianni, Hurts.
No.
The guy is, can a GM win a Super Bowl?
He should.
The answer is yes.
It
Howie
is.
Roseman's done it twice.
And also give credit to their owner. They spend money better than anyone else. They will, if you look at a couple years from now, Jalen Hurts has like a $98 million cap hit. Like they restructure and they spend cash as well as any team in the NFL. And by the way, everyone can do it. Not every owner is willing to do it, but they will.
Yeah, Laurie is great.
And identifying AJ Brown in a trade, right? And going out and finding, how about the fact that they spent a bunch of money on Bryce Huff, who was their big edge rusher. He doesn't play, and it didn't matter. When's the last time you swung big on a free agent edge rusher and had it absolutely be a bust, and it didn't matter, and your defensive line was still one of the highlights? If you look through the last couple years of the draft, Quinyon Mitchell, Cooper DeJean, and Jalix Hunt, who was the guy that was kicking the ass of the left tackle for Kansas City. That was your first 3 draft picks in this year's draft.
Right there.
Go to last year. Jalen Carter, Nolan Smith, Akili Ringo, all in the draft previous to that. You want to go back before that? Jordan Davis, who actually turned into a really nice player from them after he lost some weight. Cam Juergens was brought into Kobe Dean, who was really good till he got hurt. You want to go back the year before that? Devontae Smith, who everyone said was too small. Landon Dickerson, who they spent money on, is now an all-pro guard.
There you go.
Can just go through. Oh, and by the way, the year before that,
It's like
Jalen
every
Hurts
time.
was in the second round.
It's every time.
Every
and
time.
it's consistent. And you've got to be, if you're like a Cowboys fan, or if you're a fan of a team that just can't seem to get it right, this has to drive you insane.
Yes.
Because all this guy does
His
is
fine players.
reinvent
Yeah.
his roster every year. And that's where I lead to, and maybe we can talk about this down the road, but are they, they're not really a dynasty obviously they're not. You have to have more championships to be a dynasty in a shorter period of time, but we don't think of teams like this as a dynasty. And boy, that's what makes it even more amazing.
They are, without question, this is their 3rd Super Bowl, 2nd win in 8 years with 3 entirely different rosters. Without question, this right now, the Philadelphia Eagles are a top 3 franchise in the NFL.
Yeah. Exactly.
Without question.
Yeah.
Top to bottom. Ownership, GM, structure of the whole thing.
It's crazy.
They are the envy of almost everyone in the league if you're going top to bottom. And
Gotta hand it to him.
It's really quite. And remember that Chip Kelly tried to force Howie Roseman out.
Remember that? There was a battle between
Yeah.
Chip Kelly and Howie Roseman.
Yeah.
And we were like, oh my God, Roseman won. Yeah, probably a pretty good move, Loria,
Yep.
to pick that guy.
No, and as someone else points out, Zach Bond was a special teams guy that came over from the Saints who thought he was going to be an edge rusher when he came over. And they were like, nah, you're going to play middle linebacker. And by the way, you're going to be one of the finalists for Defensive Player of the Year and intercept
Well,
Make
Patrick
one of the biggest
Mahomes
plays of the Super
in
Bowl.
Super
Yeah.
Bowl.
Just
So,
imagine if they had Andy Reid still and Patrick Mahomes with their roster.
Yeah.
Like it's
no, it's
insane.
yeah. If they had a player like that, like if you, as good as Hurts is, and again, give Hurts all his flowers, and he's such a good guy, and it's a great story. But if you had Lamar Jackson on this team, because they make the same amount of money, I mean, then you're really talking about an all-time team that would be just like that you created on Madden, and the computer wouldn't let you do it because it would be unfair.
Man.